Hi, and welcome to the Catalytic Leader Podcast, episode 4. I'm Erin, and I've had the opportunity to be a participant with Jerry, Michael, and Fred as they have talked about and lived out and taught us more about what it looks like to be a catalytic leader, kind of what you're learning in this podcast. Today, in episode 4, we're talking about being missionaries as the out aspect of this up and out three-dimensional life. Michael touches on the idea of people of peace and how we can pay attention to those around us and the hope that we can bring to the people that are already interested. We also talk about how today is a different world than it was 20 years ago and how things have to look different when we're missionaries and on mission. We were told we should go and make disciples, but really we've been inviting people into the places that we've been. Let's head out. Take a listen to episode 4, talking about missionaries as catalytic leaders.
Well, hello everyone. We're back. By now you're probably going, how many times we're going to have to listen to these guys? But we've had a great time, the three of us together. I'm here with my buddy Michael Guzman and Jerry Davison, and we've been kind of putting a podcast series together where we've done a number of things. But most of all, the first one you saw, we did an overview of where we're hoping eventually our churches can go. But what we're trying to do is stimulate conversation so that you, the listener, can be aware of what maybe you might want to focus on. For example, we did an overall overview in the beginning. In the second episode, we talked about abiding in Jesus and really defining what that means. And, you know, interestingly enough, I had a conversation with a group of pastors right after we did the podcast, and they were stuck on that. They were really trying to talk about that. And it was from the standpoint of, do I study the Word of God to do my sermons, or do I study for me and then study for my sermon at another time? So, I mean, it was a great conversation, but what does it mean to abide in Jesus? We looked at John 15, and we're the branches and he's the vine. What does that look like? And the discussion was pretty lively. Then we rolled on into equipping the church for ministry and tried to define what equippers were. And basically, they're leaders who raise up and empower others to do the work of ministry. And again, a lot of pastors struggle with the idea of, what do I let go of? Who do I let lead this ministry? Boy, it's so much easier if I can hold on to all of it, control it myself. But when we do that, we set our church up for the day we leave, everything collapses because nobody knows what I did or how I did it or where my notes are on what I did.
Passwords, let alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But before we get to today's topic, where we're really talking about being on mission now and the missionaries that we are, let's have a little fun and let's do a deep dive into Jerry's life. Okay?
Yeah.
So Jerry, what's new? What's going on with you right now?
Right now, I am looking forward to some time away. So
Nice.
I'm not going to divulge where I'm headed or what's going on, but I'm just looking for time of rest. You know, we talk about abiding, right?
Yeah.
We live in seasons. We live in work and in rest. And I'm so looking forward to time to just get away, change of scenery, hanging out with some good people, eat some good food.
Is Chris going to be able to go with you?
So,
okay. What about you, Michael? What's new for you?
Yeah, what's new is halibut fishing. So I've been trying to go halibut fishing. Had a couple of canceled charter boats. The ocean was just not cooperating on those days that I had set up. But looking forward to getting some halibut in the freezer. Had a great time doing that last year and want to catch some more.
Yeah, I told Michael earlier, Jerry, don't make me read about you in the paper.
right.
The boat.
Was it the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald? Is that what we're singing about? Oh, that dates me, man. Uh-oh.
Hey,
Watch out.
I actually have seen that boat in person.
Okay.
So
Very nice.
that's a scary thought.
What about you, Fred? What's new for you?
Yeah, what's happening?
Well, I spent 4 hours yesterday putting new patio furniture together.
Oh,
And
nice.
you know, I don't like the way they do stuff now. We bought this set. It was on sale at Lowe's. Because they didn't have it, they had to ship it to us. Because if they have it, they put it together and bring it to your house.
Yeah.
Well, The guy says, "Oh, it'll be easy. You can get it done in about 25, 30 minutes."
It-
It took
yeah.
me 4 hours, man.
4 hours later.
Yeah, you get pictures of
Right, right.
the angles they show you are not the angles
No,
that you interpret. And
no.
oh man, my body aches from bending over. My fingers hurt from using those Allen wrenches right now. And I'm like, whoever wrote these instructions, they must come from IKEA because they're no different. So but I got it done, and I almost wanted to take my computer out and show you my handiwork.
Oh, that's fun.
Would be nice.
And guess what? There were no extra screws.
Hey, that is
What?
impressive.
That is.
That is very
That
impressive.
is. Well done. Well done.
So, Michael, as we talk about missionaries from a local context, would
Yeah.
you help us define what that is, first of all? What are
Yep.
missionaries?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. And I think even to frame it in the wider lens, Fred, you talked about how our first episode, we talked about the overview of a Jesus-shaped life, this
Yeah.
up, in, and out life. And so again, this missionary is just language that we've given to the identity of the kind of leader that we think is going to be able to pioneer and develop, this Jesus-shaped landscape. And so the up dimension of abiding, the in dimension of equipping, and then the out dimension, like how we interact with the wider world around us, is the language we used is missionary there. I know I remember hearing a message years and years ago about someday people are going to come from other countries to the United States to preach the gospel. As you kind of see this decline in Christianity's influence in the United States. And I remember when that was like, oh, that would be crazy if that were to happen. Again, maybe I didn't understand quite how much was wrapped up in Christendom and all of that kind of stuff. But I do remember, seeing that tide turn where it's like the place that we actually live, the cities that we live in, especially in the Pacific Northwest, they may not have the same Christian DNA that maybe somewhere in the Midwest or somewhere back in our, Church of God forefathers time frame where you were reaching somewhat of a Christian context. And so when we send people overseas or short-term mission trips, you go to a new context and, you're there ready to share the gospel, whether that's through serving or through speaking or, whatever that may look like. We always saw it as like, that's what we do when we go there. But now we've got to figure out, how do we actually live as missionaries in our day and time? And so it's not so much about inviting people to come to do the things that we're doing, but about actually like reaching the people, usually even getting out of the building, getting out of our regular services. So Fred, you look like you're bursting with a comment you want to
No,
make.
I'm still laughing because I'm thinking, oh gosh, Michael, if you only knew. This has actually happened. I worked with you for Christ, right?
Yeah.
And this was about 15, 20 years ago. A guy shows up in our office from India. He came, he says, I'm a missionary and I wanted to talk to you guys about Jesus. I'm like,
Yeah.
did you see the name on our
Yeah.
building? But that was the first time I realized people are coming to see us now because they don't
Yeah.
think we have it down.
Yeah, man, that's good. I hear you. I think, we've tried to give some kind of a biblical framework for that identity statement for each of the others. And I think maybe two parts that I'd like to throw out, and then we can discuss this further, is just in a big picture since, like missio, that root word in missionary, just means sent. And you can kind of see in the very heart and nature of who God is throughout the whole arc of the scriptures, that he's sent. You see it in creation, even kind of like his sentness on display. And then even in his creation of humanity, this idea that he's delegating that mission even to them. You see it in Jesus, the Son, being sent. You see, the Spirit of God being sent. And then you can see it in just like the DNA of who the people of God are, the church, that we're a sent people. And so missio, that Missio Dei is like a really, really key theme all throughout the scriptures. But I think the text that I would land on to then really put it back practically for us would be somewhere like in Luke chapter 9. Jesus sends out the disciples, two by two to go to towns ahead of him. And he does it in multiple ways. Luke 9 and Luke 10 both hit at it. Mark has accounts of it where it's either the 12 or the 70 that go out. And it's really, I don't know that I saw this when I first read these texts, but that Jesus is really like teaching them and training them to go out as sent ones the same way that he is. And so I'll just read some of this and then unpack a little bit more. So this is Luke chapter 9. It says, one day Jesus called together his 12 disciples, and he gave them power and authority to cast out all demons and to heal all diseases. Then he sent them out. Notice that missio sent them out to tell everyone about the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. Verse 3 says, take nothing for your journey. He instructed them, don't take a walking stick, a traveler's bag, food, money, or even a change of clothes. Wherever you go, stay in the same house until you leave the town. And if a town refuses to welcome you, shake its dust from your feet as you leave to show that you've abandoned those people to their fate. And then it concludes with this, at least with this segment. So they began their circuit of the villages, preaching the good news and healing the sick. And so you see him sending them on these short-term mission trips. He sends them out in pairs, and he sends them out with authority. So I think that's an important part. Like, they're not just going out handing out flyers, come see, Jesus preach at the next thing. They're actually going out as authorized ambassadors, emissaries, and they're going carrying a message that's going to be vocalized, the gospel of the kingdom, but they're also going to demonstrate it as well. So like, they have authority to do the same types of things that Jesus already has been doing, and they've been able to watch him do it. But what's interesting is that when they go, like, the key thing that all of these texts, Jesus sending them out, he's asking them to kind of just be regular humans, offer your peace to the people that you meet. And if in the offering of your peace, or like shalom, like a Middle Eastern greeting, if it's received, then pay attention. Like, here's a person of peace. Stay with them, work with them. Don't depend upon all of these other abilities, but demonstrate the kingdom there, proclaim the kingdom there. And then if they don't respond, if they're not people of peace, then shake the dust from your feet. And I know that there's kind of like a sense of a judgment in that. But I really think it probably has a lot to do with the sent one as well. Like, I know that as I've gone on mission or tried to do local mission, when it doesn't work out, it can be a little, I don't know, maybe you feel insecure, or maybe you're like, I just need to keep trying. And I think, we've got to, in a way, just shake the dust off of our feet. It's not so much that we're letting go of those people and we could care less about them, move on to the next batch that we're going to sell the gospel to or something like that. But it really is like, I'm trusting you, Father, that these people aren't ready right now. But Lord, maybe there's somebody else that's going to come, or maybe there's just another time for that. So last thing, just, real quick, short handles on like what to look for in a person of peace. That's been helpful for me. Do they like me? Like, do they just receive me? Do they listen to the story that I carry? Because it may be that I'm friendly, but are they hearing the story of Jesus that I carry? And it doesn't mean that I've got to like just, do you know Jesus, and do you know where you're going to go tonight if you die? I think it does, what's the big good news that you carry and embody? And then do they serve you? And those things, like listen and serve, have been really good indicators for me to learn, how do I live as a sent one and pay attention to the people of peace that God's already prepared in advance for me to be able to engage with? Somebody pick it up from there. What else do you want to riff off of that I'm putting out there?
I like you, Mike.
There you go. All right. So Fred is a person of peace. That's good.
Nice. He doesn't listen to me, though.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure. I agree. I think the whole concept of the Missio Dei, the mission of God, I think of John 20:21, where Jesus said, as a father has sent me, so I send you. And I think that is so critical and so key to God. In his very nature is a sending God. And he sent Jesus, and Jesus sends us. And I think as we think about probably one of the struggles that we face as churches in that is we don't have very good models for that.
Right? You really don't. Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Servant Solutions, serving those who serve since 1949. Born from the Church of God's vision to care for ministers and their families, Servant Solutions has grown from a simple pension board into a trusted partner for retirement planning, financial education, and holistic support for church staff. We remain dedicated to empowering those in ministry with wise planning and stewardship tools for every season. Learn how Servant Solutions can help you plan faithfully and care well for those you serve. Visit servantsolutions.org to find out more.
Well, that might be because we focus so much on a pastor's role as preaching and teaching.
Hmm.
And, we get back to the fivefold ministry, there's a lack of prophetic or evangelism or the apostleship because it's all about teaching and preaching. And so no one ever hears, hey, we need to go outside these walls and do something. That's more or less what you need to line up in your life.
Yeah.
And you'll be a better Christian. And what we produce is what I call a constipated Christian. Because let me give a little reference to that.
Yes, please.
I have a friend who Jerry knows, who I tried to get for years to volunteer with me working with kids outside the church. And she always told me she didn't have time because she had this Bible study to go to.
I
She
see.
had
Yeah.
church. She had this Bible study. She had the women's group. She had all these things. And I looked at her and I said, you're a constipated Christian. She goes, what? I said, you have no place. You take in all that spiritual food, but no place to release it. And I think that's been our focus is so inward to our personal piety that we've forgotten. You used the word earlier, ambassadors. It tells us that in 2 Corinthians 5 that we are ambassadors for Christ. And we don't live like that.
Well, I'm thinking too, I referenced some of like the wider cultural like context that we live in. I mean, I remember not even too long ago in church contexts I've been in, you didn't have to do much well, let me rephrase that. You put out the invitation to invite people to come to something like we had a living nativity. And the rest of the community already knew to expect that. And like we had people busting down the doors and we were, dealing with like, the fire code on the wall says we can only have this many people in the building. And what do we do when we have open flame and there's more people coming than that? And then I remember as, even watching how that just changed over time. Like it used to be, you could just put up a sign and say, come to this thing. But I think in the early phases of development in a non-reached place, you usually have to do a lot more going before you do the inviting. And we're in a different spot now where we're used to doing the inviting, and we've got to like work the muscle of going. And again, just like Jerry, you had mentioned, we don't really have a lot of examples of what that looks like. Or if we do have examples, they're so far reaching, like go to far away places and, take your pine box with you. It's like either so extreme, it's not like real practical. And like, what does it look like to be a regular person doing missionary work now?
Right. Our, missiologists talk about, Christendom and the end of Christendom and there is that cultural shift where we've got to now begin to think in terms of, what a missionary who lands on the ground does. We have to learn the language. We have to, listen more than we speak to our neighbors, to the people around us. I think in the age of Christendom, there was that call to, hey, come and see, right?
Yeah.
And the up and the in, as we talk about the up in and out, was big. I mean, the worship services, and we said we're about going and making disciples, but really what that meant was inviting people in, and we'll take them to a class, and then they'll become like Jesus, right? So there was. So we have that model, the up and the in, but there's, again, there's just not a lot of, people who are actually going out and making friends. I mean, we were taught to go out and present the gospel, right? Take a tract or visual explosion, some of those different programs. And again, nothing wrong with those in the context of Christendom, but when we get out of Christendom, people don't have the same frame of reference. And I think of Jesus who said to his disciples, hey, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And he didn't lead them to the church. He led them out in the community. They walked around. They laid hands on people and healed them. It was the walking around in the different communities where the ministry happened. And no longer can we say, hey, come and see. We've got to go and be, I think, be Jesus to our
And I think it
neighbors.
gets tough. I'm glad you said that about the fishers, because we are supposed to become fishermen. Mike's the consummate fisherman in our group.
Still a
Get me out.
newbie
No one
at it
fished for
too.
halibut.
And you want me to get out in the boat with you, and you can't even swim. But the little bit that I know about fishing, Jerry, almost a comparison I think of is when you go tuna fishing, you don't need bait. Yeah, they take these big boats out. The only way I know is I watch the Geography Channel. They have just a hook, and they just throw it in the water because they pull up in the school, within the school of tuna, and there's so much excitement. The fish are just biting at whatever's there. I think that's what it was when I was younger.
Yeah.
People were
It's
hungry for
different.
something. Whereas today, when you go fishing, what kind of fish do you want to catch? So you got this lure or you've got this bait. I didn't know until a guy taught me. You want to catch carp, you use dough bread. Dough bread, what the heck is that? And then they have this stuff that stinks like everything that you use to catch catfish with. So you have all these different baits for the different types of fish. And so when we talk about missiology now, depending on where I'm going, I can't go, say, up into the hood and say, "Hi guys," It's more like, "What's up?" I've got to
You got to speak the language. Yep.
I got to adjust to where I'm going, and I don't think people feel comfortable learning a new language. And in America, the rest of the world is multilingual. America is the only place where we speak one language and we demand that everybody else speak the language we speak.
Yeah. I've used this shape tool in a lot of different contexts, and meeting weekly with leaders or traveling, in the US and Canada with different church leaders. And inevitably, we'll use that as a lens to be able to just reflect, how's your up doing, how's your in doing, and how's your out. Give yourself a score. And again, it's subjective, but give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 10. And I mean, the vast majority, I want to say 95% of the cases, you usually have something like a strong up and a strong in, but the out is usually the lowest one. And I think it comes back to all of these things that we've been saying, because we don't have models and examples other than these giant heroes that are difficult to emulate. And our culture is different. We don't know how to live like everyday missionaries in our own context.
And I think part of the struggle too is we still have an attractional mindset, right? Even when we talk about being sent, going out it's okay, let's go out and we'll do this missional program or this event, we'll go out into our community, but the goal is then to bring the sheep back or to bring the fish. I'm mixing my analogies, to bring the fish into the boat, right? Into the church. And I think what I've seen a lot of times is churches or pastors who will do a missional program they won't really catch any fish. And so they'll say, well, this doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
But it is a long, slow troll.
Yeah.
To use a fishing analogy. That's the only one I know. I'm more into golf. I don't know.
There was a
but
book,
it's a long, slow process, and it's not just about a pop-up event. It's about relationships, and I think that's the thing that Jesus modeled the most. Was he got criticized because he was eating with the tax collectors and sinners. He was hanging out with them. He was spending time with them. He was dining with them, and it's a slow process. And I don't know, in our fast-paced church world that wants to bring people into the
microwave
church.
version, man. Come on.
It is microwave version.
There was a book written years ago called "What's Gone Wrong with the Harvest," and the author, what he was saying was what you just said. If 0 means I come to Christ, -1, -2, it goes down here. There are different levels of the minuses, all the things that I have to unpack to get to 0. Right. Then I get to 1 +2 +3 +3 and grow my faith. but he only went to -8. And the world we
Yeah.
live in today is
Oh.
probably -25 now.
Yeah. So
It's
there's
way down there.
right, nothing wrong with the harvest. We just got to change our harvesting methods, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
it's that, incarnational. Think about it. When Jesus was
Right.
sent, he came in the flesh, became one of, and then lived in relative obscurity for quite a few years before his public ministry even began. And I'm not trying to say that, hey, the practical step is just embrace obscurity, but he just had regular rhythms of being a human with the people and all,
Well, let's talk about that.
represented the kingdom. So
Let's talk about that. How do we practically? What are some practical ways that we can start living as a missionary, missional leader? What does that look like for me?
Yeah.
Right.
Start with a very basic thing. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
so good.
houses right around my house. I meet my neighbors. I
Mhm.
interact with them. I know their names. I learn something about them every day because I engage in them. Used to
Right.
be in my neighborhood, people would drive up to their driveway, the garage door goes up, they go in, it comes down. And that was it. Well, I'm out. And when they're out mowing their lawn, I go over and I talk to them. That's part of my extroversion, as
Yeah.
I talked about in our last podcast. But I learn about them and their families, but they learn about me.
Yeah.
Right.
There's an exchange of information. And they all know that both Denise and I are ministers. They all know that we do ministry, but we haven't pushed anything on them. We've developed a relationship, or better yet, we've earned the right to be heard at
Yeah.
some point.
Right.
And they have actually come to hear Denise preach when she's preaching at
That's
church.
cool.
It's awesome.
But it came out of relationship. They don't come every
Right.
week. They
Mhm.
haven't
Sure.
accepted Jesus or anything. And then when they have issues and problems in their life, they talk to us. And one of the couples, they have a little girl. They're not even married. And the question is, what's the holdup, dude? Why don't you ask? And I think he's afraid because if I ask, everything will go wrong. I don't know, but there's that thing, and you can see the tension in their family. But we've learned to love on them and not condemn them. And that's a different approach than when you've been hellfire and brimstone all your life.
Right.
And if you don't measure up to the standard, you're out.
So true.
I think too, missiologists talk about a third space, right? They talk about the first space being home, second space being work, third place being just a place to hang out and frequent. And I think, for me, I've got a guy, we go to a particular establishment once a month and got to know Ryan, the owner, and, just had opportunities to chat with him during our monthly gathering. We know his name, he knows our name. Again, have we had gospel conversations with him? No, not yet. But we've had some good conversations about what's going on in the world, and we've been able to weave some of our understanding of the God that we serve into those conversations. And the struggle is, I think, too, is in those kinds of establishments, there's such a transient nature. So, I mean, to go to a Starbucks every morning, you could have a different barista.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to, again, have a place where you go, like Norm, may he rest in peace, where everybody knows your name, right? And you just get to know people.
And
Again,
it's really
relationship.
cool. It's really cool if you've been gone for a few weeks and you come back and they go, "Where you been? We missed you."
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lorenzo Peterson, affectionately called Pastor Zoe. And this episode is sponsored by Warner Pacific University, founded by the Church of God in 1937. We are raising students to have Christ-centered leadership and service. And our motto here comes from Jeremiah 29:11. Of course, that talks about purpose. And our own logo, WP, stands for with purpose. And listen, we are igniting a flame of purpose that can never be extinguished in our students, and we are very excited about that. And we are inviting you pastors and community leaders to re-engage with Warner Pacific University as we continue to raise up leaders to go out and do God's bidding in the kingdom. We are shaped by this movement's values, our shared story, 90 years strong. is simply this, from the old hymn: because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know who holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. For more information about what God is doing at his university, you can go to our website, warnerpacific.edu.
Yeah, I think another example that could be simple and entry level would be just doing things like prayer walking through a community or a neighborhood. And what you're doing is you're a lot of the examples we've given so far are relational, so like in oriented and out. But I think to bring up into the picture is, just go prayer walking, walk through a neighborhood. Ask God to be able to give you eyes to see what he sees. That may be needs, that may be problems, that may be opportunities in front of you. Pray for, if you were walking through Fred's neighborhood, pray for those people that you know by name, but also pray for the homes that you don't know by name. And it's interesting to be able to kind of connect those two things. It's not just that we operate on a horizontal, but you're bringing that vertical relationship and even spiritual intelligence that the Lord may reveal into it, and finding ways to be able to break into a community in that sense. And so, yeah, I think all of those ideas working together could be really, really great.
Yeah, really good.
One of the books that we have been taking our pastors through about empowering missional disciples, he talks about everything being family, whether it be my family or the family of God or the family of my neighborhood or whatever. How do we shift from making a choice between family or mission, because we see them separate, or family and mission? Oh, it's a burden to do mission. Where we go, we're a family on mission.
Yeah.
How do we get there in terms of helping our churches change from a culture of come and see, as you said earlier, to wrapping up to where we go and be? What simple little thing in wrapping this up, I guess, would you say you would suggest to somebody, here's how you can be on mission?
I can hear my wife's voice kind of entering into the conversation, because this is stuff that we, plowed and furrowed, in the past. And so she would say, man, use your table and invite people to come. We're finding that in this new context where we are on the coast, that even when we've offered for people to come, we've had such a small amount of people actually respond to it. So it's been really interesting that, like, you do have to spend so much more time kind of building trust before people cross the threshold. But yeah, I think Kimberly would say, one of the great places, you can hear it in what Jerry was talking about with the way that Jesus, ate with people, but use your table. It's such an important altar in the mission of God, to eat and break bread with other people, be human beings with them, and enjoy good conversation and laughter. That's a really, really important spot.
Yeah. And I would say, don't go it alone. Take your spouse with you for sure, but find a few other like-minded people.
Yeah. That's
who
good.
you are in relationship, in family with. And, so you're not, I think too often the understanding of evangelism or going out is, I've got to go take the message of Jesus to people who don't want to hear it. But really, again, get some like-minded folks around
So good.
that are already eating together, and then invite some other people in.
So good.
Yeah. Don't do it alone.
Yeah, me, I would just simply say, do what's natural for you.
It's good.
And I'm going to use you, Jerry, because I've watched Jerry. He invited me to go golfing with him one day. Well, he golfs with these guys every Friday, and none of them are Christians. And it was a really interesting time. One of them couldn't make it, so I was the extra that suddenly rounded out the group. But just watching the interactions, and it was all through golf. And the golf language and laughing and stuff would come out, and it was all natural. It wasn't like Jerry never played golf before, but tried to act like he was a golfer and play with these guys.
Yeah, it's good.
And I think that's what a lot of people do. They think, I have to become something I'm.
Well, Well, thanks for listening in to this conversation. We're grateful to have walked through each of these three elements of the Jesus-shaped life and the catalytic leader tool. So can't wait to be able to get you the next episode out.
See ya.
Swing away.
Hey, come west, young man. Come west, young woman. If you're sensing a call to join the work of pioneering and developing a Jesus-shaped landscape in the Northwest, we want to hear from you. Whether you're a pastor, a leader, a church planter, simply curious about how God might use you here, take the step. Visit chognorthwest.org/come west and fill out the form there. Let's dream together about what God can do through you in the Northwest. That's chognorthwest.org/come west. Come west.